happens nowadays very often is people who are overweight, they eat a lot of food, but their body is looking for nutritious food. But seeing as there is no nourishment in a lot of foods today because of the food industry, they're not finding it. So it just keeps getting worse and worse. And this is a very good example, comparison as to what's going on with human beings nowadays, because many of them are trying to fill this void, but it cannot happen if you do it by having these dead-end careers and consuming all of stuff, buying all of the stuff that you don't actually need. It will also just keep getting worse because it's not nutritious, so to say. People who believe in the evolution theory, many of them see themselves as pieces of monkey meat. And once you start believing such nonsense, it's no wonder that so many have lost all of their meaning in their lives. Many things can become meaningless if you have such a mindset. But of course, I'm not saying that believing in souls and spirits is good if you've been taught that through religions or whatever else. If you have not experienced it yourself, it's of course not good to believe in such things. People are not able to see the big picture because they are unable to connect to their real self. I had this discussion with somebody, and we talked about many things, and one thing he mentioned was this book he had read from this psychologist about how there's the people who are looking for the real self, because I had mentioned it, and then he started talking about it and how it's all psychological, and people are unhappy because all of their life they're looking for this real self and they never find it. But here's the big problem: if you do this because somebody has told you to do it, it will of course it's never going to happen. This is not the way it works, and I suppose this is one of the ways that people get brainwashed in universities or wherever they learn such nonsense. But here's the thing: I myself came to this conclusion myself. I realized this myself without ever reading it anywhere, as far as I can recall. And what I have learned is that many of these things, many people realize themselves, and this is quite interesting if you start thinking about it, because what does this mean? That many come to the same realizations without any outside help, without anybody, let's say, inspiring or teaching them about it. And I'll talk about that a bit more. You may understand why it is so that I come to the same conclusions as many other people, and they come to conclusions as others, and so on. And what I'll keep talking about now is where I got the ideas, where I get the ideas for all of my videos. If it's not obvious to some people, it may be quite interesting to many. sometime back in 2008, there was this moment where I realized, for lack of a better word, that the human body, this what you're looking at right now, is not who I am. Or at least it's only partly me. And if you're wondering how, then I can only refer you to my video called Finish, because it's a way of sensing something, but it's not hearing or seeing, it's beyond that. So trying to describe it is useless. A few months later, I was in bed about to go to sleep, and it happened again. And what I realized then is that I'm being fed these ideas for my videos. However, it may only feel like it's being fed to me because if you connect to your real self, call it your soul or your spirit, then when it starts working together with your mind, it may seem very strange because you don't understand it, because it's new to you. So it's not necessarily something bad, but it could feel like it, especially from what people get taught from religions and so on. For example, there's also people who believe in Indigo children, but at the same time, and I'll link you to an article, there's somebody else, a Christian, who says that those people are demon possessed. But the thing here is that only you can know who you are, as obvious as it may sound. These are only words, and this is why I'll talk about the human language after. But I do like how Christians usually say that your body is your temple. It does feel like it's guiding me, but again, it's not necessarily like that. It's just because this understanding is so different from what we physically with our minds can think of. You could call it thinking outside the box being your body, but that sounds wrong, because that's not thinking then anymore. So this is how I get the ideas for my videos, and to that I have to add that I'm very conscious about what I've learned from other people. So these aren't things like that, a lot of things that I talk about in my videos. This comes from somewhere else. Of course, I've also heard that somebody said that we are all connected and so on. You've probably heard this. And this is why many people come to the same realizations without ever having talked to each other, simply because it comes from a higher place. The way I see it is that I'm here to observe mainly to observe, but to also help others. And then what I think about is, was I born this way? Because I don't believe so. I know that I was one of the most brainwashed guys out there, although I was always quite different, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. But one day it just clicked, step by step, but at the end it clicked. And then what I also think about is, if we are all given a life purpose or something similar, then it would mean that this whole thing is a game, which is the conclusion I always come to. And this is exactly the reason why I just don't take many things serious. Things that may mean the world to somebody else could mean nothing to me, or very little at least. Many things are just not relevant. Which is also why I'm not afraid of death, and I don't want to die. I would want to live a very long life on this planet, but there's just not much more you can say to it. I don't fear death because death is... I'm talking about physical death, and from what I've experienced myself, and this is not based on other people's beliefs or religions, there's definitely something way beyond what we can see, and this is why I just don't see death as the end of anything. Every day, everywhere, I just... very often I feel this absolute appreciation of being alive. And I do see myself as alive because I see... I used to be dead. That's the way I see it. Back when I was asleep. Let's just say that. And this is why I feel like I need to, but I definitely want to spread it everywhere. By any means. And I'm not saying this to sound like I'm full of myself, as in I feel better than most people. It's just that every day you see this suffering, people suffering everywhere. And the worst part about it is, or you can see it as a good thing, you know how to help them, and it works sometimes, but most of the time there's just no way to go through, get through to them because they're not open. But I had this message from somebody, this email, a really long one, and I just saw that he got it all. So it's definitely possible to wake up people for real, wake them up. It's doable, and it just makes all of it worth it. And I've had many more, and it's great to know that people feel like they can message me and talk to me about things that they can talk about to others. But even back when I was dead, I never, as far as I can remember, told any secrets to anybody, as in people could always trust me, even if it's somebody I don't talk to anymore, and if I could do him harm, which I wouldn't do with that secret, I wouldn't do it simply because of distrust. There's a lot of things a lot of interesting things that I've learned from other people's experiences, and this is just my experience that you can use as food for thought.
I think everybody can feel it.
Feel what?
There's something, a feeling that there's something wrong, something fucked up.
Where? Here?
No, not here, I mean in general, these days. Many people start waking up and they realize that their souls are sick. And I think it's because they feel that there's this tension. There's this feeling that the world is shaking, you know, that everything is going out of control, that there's something big gonna happen. Don't you feel the same? People are sick inside.
But there is no one to hear us.
We just don't see them. The real healers, they can just touch you and give you something and help you without you even noticing. You know, I met someone like that. It was so strong. You know, he was in front of me and telling me the truth. You know, after talking to him, I cried for hours and hours, but I didn't know why I was crying. I was just sitting there and crying like for hours. But then I realized why I was crying, because he was saying the truth, you know? He was right. He was saying that I was a robot. And my whole life, you know, I was a robot my whole life. Now I learn how to deprogram myself. Everything that has been put into my head, from my parents, from the school, from friends, from the city I lived in.
Hey, тютка, здесь you.
What?
Where are you from?
I'm from the sun.
I'm from the moon.
No. You're from the earth. Only the very bad guys come from the moon.
Вземи това топче.
What?
За жената слънце. I give.
It's very weird. What is this?
Топче.
Topçu? Top. Topçu?
Топче.
What? O ne?
За търкалене.
Many times I'm not capable of putting my thoughts, if that's what they are, into words. The English language or any other language that is popular nowadays, they all seem useful, and they are for the most part. But when you think about simple words, flower means flower, table means table, person means person. No, it doesn't mean what most people believe, is what I'm saying. The language is useful if it's within the system. If you want to explain things to people, it is useful. Then it's important to know what the person means and so on, but if I didn't live in this system, I wouldn't care about that. It is quite corrupted, and most of these languages nowadays are. The human body is able to make these sounds, which we then call letters, put them together, we call words. But although it is useful for communication, it is limited. There's a point you cannot cross with the language when it comes to explaining things, which is exactly what I was talking about before. And that's the main problem with languages. You know how it is when you repeat words, word after, repeat them over and over again, and they lose their meaning? I'm sure that most of you have experienced this, especially as a kid. I used to have this. There's an explanation for it, and maybe so, but what is also possible is that after repeating a word so many times, you simply realize that the only meaning the word has is the one that man gave it, because languages are man-made. So you simply realize that it's just a sound coming out of your word. The only meaning it has is the man-made meaning. It's a possibility. Because naturally there's no meaning. Just to make it clear. If there was no language, we would be a lot more independent, because we wouldn't learn things from others. We would have to think for ourselves. That would be all good. But I'm not saying that the language is bad. For the most part, it is good. And I had this discussion with somebody, and he said that he said something I agree with, that the point where this point we have reached in the world where we are right now, we should try to find the best way, not out of it, but the best thing to do with what we have now, and not try to go back, because many people like to say everything used to be better. That's not something you can know, but I would assume so too. So my point is that well, of course the languages should stay. It's just that the way we use them should change. Right now it's being used against us. And one thing that I find interesting is about, let's just say, witchcraft or spells, magic spells. What I'm thinking is, if these there are spells in the English language, for example, too, although usually it's a lot older languages. If they would, if the spells in the English language would do anything, whether it's good or do harm, doesn't matter. If they do something, then it would mean that the language has power. But that's just not the case. The only thing then would make sense is that the words are not what counts, but the energy and the emotions you put into the words. If the English language or any other was made by the devil, or God or something like that, just putting it simply, then it would of course make sense as to why words have this power. That could be the case with many other older languages. Maybe there's real natural languages, but you remove the D from devil, you get evil. You add O to God, you get good. Those are just words that really mean something else. It's just man-made words. Or it could have been created by man who have some kind of power that can give the language power, but that's not something I believe.